working? Or I don't know what happened. Okay, I'm live on Twitch. What about YouTube? Okay, I think we're back. Hello? Can you guys hear me? Oh gosh. I actually don't know if it was my internet that was doing something funky or if I accidentally stopped streaming on YouTube. No, actually, I was still streaming on Twitch for a bit, but then I turned off on Twitch and YouTube. Okay, hi. One in chat if you can hear me. Type one in chat. Oh, I need to make a new chat now. I can't see your guys' old chat. Hold on, I can't see the chat right now. Weird happens to me sometimes too. Boo! Hi, El Jefe. Do you stream on Twitch and YouTube, or what do you stream on? Or Kick? Okay, one. I see some ones. We back? Okay. I have no idea what happened. I have no idea. This is the worst 5 minutes of my life. All right. Where were y'all with Dave Halls? He was talking about safety. Do you guys hear that part? Dave Halls was talking about safety. He said that he generally felt safe, that he felt safe. No, he felt that Rust was a safe set and that there's no concerns with Hannah as an armorer. Did y'all get to hear that part? On Twitch, you should try multi-stream. I've seen some people multi-stream on like TikTok, YouTube, Kick, Twitch. Do all of them. Right at the beginning, start over. No way. Wait, you guys, not at the beginning.
Director to be a part of the, and
yeah, this part
is part of your role as the first assistant director to be a part of the safety check of firearms that's taking place on set.
Yes.
Wait, I have a question though. I have a quick question. In order for the stream to start working again, did you guys had to refresh, or were you guys just like still on my stream and it just came back? Like, how did that work? Because I wonder if people are still on my old stream and they're waiting. Sorry, for YouTube. Yeah, for YouTube. For YouTube, you have to go look at... Oh, that's what I hate about that. Oh my gosh. Can someone tell the people in the old chat to go into this stream? I got a recommendation for a different video? Okay. I had to refresh and start the stream again? Okay. YouTube makes it so annoying. On Twitch, you just stay on the same browser and it just comes back up. But on YouTube, you have to like refresh it or go to like... it's like a new video, as if. Boo. All right. Hello.
And what do you do as a safety coordinator?
It's to make sure that the different departments and cast are following the safety protocols. That there are written safety protocols that are produced in an alliance between the different unions and guilds in the industry, Screen Actors Guild, the unions that represent the technicians. And it's just to observe to make sure that mitigating any safety risks.
Did you feel, personally, up until October 21st, that Rust was a relatively safe set?
I did.
Did you yourself have any concerns about until Ms. Gutierrez's behavior as armor?
I did not.
And is part of your role as the first assistant director to be a part of the safety check of firearms that's taking place on set?
Yes.
Can you just describe for the jury generally the way that should work?
Yeah. I was going to say typically, but usually, all the time, whenever there's a firearm on set. I do not work with a lot of first assistant directors, but I am assured that this is a protocol that all assistant directors follow. That whenever a firearm is on set, I make an announcement. In the case of Rust, I had a wireless microphone that was connected to a public address, a speaker system, so everybody could hear. And all the time, whenever there was a firearm on set, I would make an announcement there was a firearm or firearms on set. I'm inspecting them with the armor. If anybody else would like to inspect the gun, now would be the time. You're certainly welcome to do that. I would also, if there was ever an incident where the firearm had to be fired, a blank, I would make that announcement. There will be live fire in this shot. Ear and eye protection are provided. Please protect your ears.
On the set of Rust, can you tell the jury what the safety checks with Ms. Gutierrez consisted of?
It's really what I just said. That whenever.
And let me stop you and
yes.
ask a more pointed question. I guess what I'm interested in is, did Ms. Gutierrez load the gun in front of you on any occasion? Just kind of walk us through your experiences with blanks, with dummies, with Ms. Gutierrez. And let's, for the purposes of these questions, let's assume that there's going to be blank firing, okay?
Yes.
We assume there's going to be blank firing. Prior to handing the gun to an actor, is there a safety check that is done with you and Ms. Gutierrez?
Yes. She showed me that there's an empty gun at that moment before she would load the blank round. She would also show me the barrel of the gun to make sure that there's no obstructions in the barrel.
So let me ask you, when she would show you the barrel, were you able to see all the way down the barrel?
On the revolvers, yes, I certainly was. I recall there might have been a rifle that I might not have been able to get a clear to see light at the end of the barrel.
Okay. So she loads the gun with blanks in front of you, is that right?
Yes.
And then what happens then?
And then she would give it to the actor.
And was it, in your mind, permissible for her to then walk away and go do something else?
During the moments of live fire?
Sure.
No, not acceptable for her to walk away.
Okay. Let's talk about instances where a gun would be loaded with dummies.
Yes.
When you would do the safety check with Ms. Gutierrez, would she load the dummies in front of you and shake them so that you could hear that they were dummies?
There were only 2 occasions where dummy rounds were used.
Let me stop you right there. When you say there were only 2 occasions that dummy rounds were used, how do you know that dummies were in the guns on those 2 occasions? Is it because Ms. Gutierrez approached you and told you?
She did.
Okay. Would you know if there were times that she would dummy up the guns and not bring them to you and not tell you?
No, the normal, every day, every moment that there was a firearm that was being handed to an actor, she would always bring the gun, the firearm to me, and we would do an inspection of the firearm.
And you only recall 2 instances where firearms were dummied.
Yes.
And was one of them on October 21st?
Yes.
And the other one, did that involve a revolver or a long gun?
A long gun.
Okay. So let's talk about October 21st. I'm gonna start with you after the lunch hour. What was happening after lunch? What were we doing there? We
were preparing a shot for Mr. Baldwin's character. He was sitting in a pew. He's been on the run. He's taking refuge in this old church, and he's sitting in the pew. And what we were photographing. I'm sorry. I'm trying to avoid the word shot. We were preparing for the shot. Mr. Baldwin sitting in the pew. It was basically from his waist to the top of his head, and his action was just to pull out the revolver. And in the story, he's pointing the revolver at 2 U.S. Marshals that have come into the church.
Okay.
Hi, Ms. Mentats.
That was what you were intending to do?
That's what we were preparing to, yes, lighting, yes.
And this has been referred to as blocking the shot. Is that your recollection?
You could refer to that. You could say that, yes. Can I just, there's been a lot of talk about rehearsal, and I'd just like to clarify, if that's okay with you.
Let's finish this line of questioning first, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, was this a rehearsal, or was it just setting up the shot?
Immediately after lunch, we were setting up the shot. Mr. Baldwin was not called to set.
And is that common, was Mr. Baldwin considered first team?
That is what we refer to in the motion picture industry. That is what we refer to the cast as, first team.
Okay. So when the shot's being set up, is first team usually there?
No.
Okay. They don't come in until it's ready to shoot.
Yes, I mean, there are occasions that we might have shot a shot with cast, and now we're going to do it at a different angle and do lighting, and they might stay there.
Okay.
It just depends on the amount of time that would be needed to prepare the shot. But Mr. Baldwin was not present at that time.
So on October 21st after lunch, they're setting up the shot. Do you recall who was in the church?
I do.
Go ahead and tell us who you recall being there.
Ms. Hutchins, Joel Souza, Serge Setnoy, Ross,
Did you say, and I'm gonna, did you say Serge Svetnoy?
yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Ross Adiego, Reese Price, Thomas Gandy, Roman Gandy. This is during preparation. Okay. This is Mr. Baldwin arriving on set. I believe the microphone boom operator, Zach Sneeby, might have been in the room in the church at that time.
Was Ms. Mitchell in the church at that time or not yet?
I don't recall seeing her there
Okay.
at that time.
Okay.
You know what? Mr. Souza would not have been. I don't think he was in the church during the preparation
Okay.
time.
So, at what point in time do you have contact with Ms. Gutierrez?
When Mr. Baldwin was called to set, when he arrived on set,
Who called Mr. Baldwin to set?
I did.
Did you, at the same time, make any request for the armor or armor services?
I did not.
Did you ask for the gun?
I did not ask for the gun
And why wouldn't you have asked for the gun?
because it's normal procedure on certainly all of the productions that I've worked on with firearms, and it's not just for firearms; it's for props and wardrobe. That when first team is called to set, it's announced over a walkie-talkie. The first assistant director would go onto the walkie-talkie and say, "Camera is ready. First team, please." This alerts all the different departments. Certainly, costumes, because they're going to need to do whatever, put a piece of costume on the actor, make adjustments. Hair and makeup, they're going to need to do their touches. Props, they're going to need to give the prop that's needed to the actor. And this is also a signal, a cue to the armor that the actor that needs the firearm is going to be on set, and I should be there. The armor, I should be there to give the gun to the actor.
Okay, so you didn't actually call for the gun, but you agree that Ms. Gutierrez may have understood that it would be time for her to come into the church?
Yes.
Okay.
We configure the question, but please, we're going to disregard the question asked. All right, thank you.
And my apologies. Just to be clear, you don't know what Ms. Gutierrez thought or why she did what she did in that moment, correct? You don't know that Ms. Gutierrez thought to herself, I better come into the church. You're making that assumption, correct?
I'm making that assumption.
Okay. But to be clear, you did not call for the gun.
No.
Okay. Does Ms. Gutierrez appear in the church?
Yes, very shortly after Mr. Baldwin appeared on set.
Okay, go ahead and kind of walk us through this. Tell us about when Mr. Baldwin appears in the church and then Ms. Gutierrez, and walk us through what happens.
Mr. Baldwin entered the church. He took his position where he was needed in the pew of the church. I'm standing in front of Mr. Baldwin, facing Mr. Baldwin. It was no more than 5 feet from him. I was a body width to what would be his left. And Ms. Gutierrez appeared on my left-hand side with the revolver, and she said, let's do the gun check. She opened up the latch to show the drum of the revolver. She rotated the cylinder. It was empty. Checked the barrel. It was what is referred to as a cold gun. And Ms. Gutierrez just took a few steps and gave the gun to Mr. Baldwin.
Now, it's your recollection at that point in time that the gun was empty, it did not have dummies in it?
It absolutely was empty.
Okay. And you looked at it, correct?
I looked at it, yes.
Now, let me stop for a moment.
Wait, what?
Were there any opportunity, at any point in time during that day, did you sit in for Mr. Baldwin?
I did.
When was that?
Wait, what? Yeah, the YouTube is so annoying with their streams. If the stream shuts down, you have to completely start like a new video. You can't just like continue off the stream that was already on there. Annoying. Ah. Well, let's see what he says.
It's your recollection at that point in time that the gun was empty, it did not have dummies in it?
It absolutely.
It was empty. It did not have dummies in it.
Let's do. Ms. Gutierrez appeared on my left-hand side with the revolver, and she said, let's do the gun check. She opened up the latch to show the drum of the revolver. She rotated the cylinder. It was empty. Checked the barrel. It was what is referred to as latch to show the drum of the revolver. She rotated the cylinder. It was empty. Checked the barrel. It was what is referred to as a cold gun. And Ms. Gutierrez just took a few steps and gave the gun to Mr. Baldwin.
Now, it's your recollection at that point in time that the gun was empty, it did not have dummies in it?
It absolutely was empty.
Okay. And you looked at it, correct?
I looked at it, yes.
Now, let me stop for a moment. Were there any opportunity, at any point in time during that day, did you sit in for Mr. Baldwin?
I did.
When was that?
After lunch.
Okay. And when you sat in for Mr. Baldwin, was the firearm in the church?
No.
Okay. So why don't we talk a little bit about that? Why are you sitting in for him? Explain to the jury how that
Well,
happens.
usually there is a stand-in for the actor, a person, and most times it's a person that matches the height and hair color look of the actor. There was a stand-in for Mr. Baldwin, and when I entered the church after lunch, the stand-in for Mr. Baldwin was there. And because of COVID, I wanted to keep the amount of people in the church to and I typically do that anyway, outside of the pandemic, before the pandemic, just in smaller spaces, I would try to keep, what I usually say is, if you don't have to be there, please don't. So because of COVID and just generally, I'd like to keep only the people that are needed for the shot there. I said, his name was Bill. I said, Bill, it's okay. I can sit in for Alec, and it was a good opportunity. Just as if I'm sitting in the pew right now, I can observe everything, the crew preparing, and that's what I did.
Did you need to have a firearm at that point in time?
I did not. No.
Did you have a firearm at that
No,
point
I
in
did
time?
not.
Were you using anything to mimic a firearm?
I recall holding up my hand like this, figure.
Just so that they could set up the shot?
Yeah.
Okay. So after the setting up of the shot, after you sitting in for Mr. Baldwin, just to be clear,
Hold on. Let's be patient with his testimony. Let's be patient. Let's let him continue telling his story.
to your recollection that Mr. Baldwin came in and Ms. Gutierrez came in around the same time?
Yes.
Okay. She does the gun check with you. You see an empty gun. To your recollection, Ms. Gutierrez hands the gun to Mr. Baldwin. Is that right?
That's correct.
What happens after that? How do we end up with a gun that is no longer empty?
I did not see the gun taken away from Mr. Baldwin. I'm still in the same position, facing him, body width to his left, no more than 5 feet in front of him. You know, as an assistant director, you're looking around, you're observing, you're communicating with people. I did not see Ms. Gutierrez take the gun from Mr. Baldwin, but she appeared back on my left-hand side, and she said that she had put dummy rounds into the revolver.
And at that point in time, was another safety check done?
She opened up the latch to the revolver. I recall seeing 3 to 4 what I believe to be dummy rounds. I had seen the dummy rounds before
And when you say you saw them before, are you talking about that day or?
that day.
Okay, and let me ask you, under what circumstances would you have seen the dummy rounds if the only other time that guns were dummied up was a rifle?
Yes, and I believe on that day, I did see those dummy rounds on her cart.
Okay, so you were familiar with what they looked like?
They had a very distinctive, bright brass end to it, what would be the end of the bottom of the shell casing, and all the primers were depressed, meaning that this has already been a bullet that has been fired. And,
But sir, let me ask you, you indicated that you only saw 3 or 4, you didn't see 6.
I don't recall her fully rotating the cylinder.
Okay. You don't recall her fully rotating it?
I do not.
Okay. And even though the cylinder wasn't fully rotated, did you let that safety check sort of pass?
I did.
Okay. And what's your recollection about what happened to the gun after that?
She took the few steps to Mr. Baldwin and gave Ms. Baldwin the gun.
Okay. And let me ask you, sir, were you criminally charged in this case?
I was.
And did you enter a no contest plea to negligent use of a firearm?
I did.
And why did you do that? When I say why, what in your mind caused you to be, what caused a plea to negligent use of a firearm to be appropriate? What did you do that would justify that?
I was negligent in checking the gun properly.
Okay, that's the reason that you took that plea, is that right?
That's correct.
So, to the best of your recollection, Ms. Gutierrez hands the gun to Mr. Baldwin. Walk us through what happens after that.
The revolver is placed. Mr. Baldwin had a holster. That the gun was basically at his chest, and his action was to take the gun up and point it at what had been the 2 U.S. Marshals. And he was pulling it out. I'm sure he was getting used to that action. He was in communication with Ms. Hutchins about where to point the gun.
Do you recall, sir, was Mr. Souza also in the room?
He was.
Was Mr. Souza also participating in how to set up this shot? Do you recall?
No, I just recall that it was communication between Mr. Baldwin and Helena.
Okay. And then what happened?
The gun went off.
When the gun went off, What did you think happened?
There's so many thoughts. Honestly, the idea that it was a live round of ammunition that went off was just not, it wasn't computing. It wasn't, and it was my thought was that a blank round had been loaded, and there had been another instance that an actor was killed from a blank round, and I just thought that there something in the blank round, a wadding. I had heard at one time that maybe they used pieces of wax to keep the black powder in the blank round, or was there an obstruction in the barrel? It just wasn't something I could compute in my mind.
Sir, after you heard the gun go off, tell us what you saw in terms of the reaction by Ms. Hutchins and Mr. Souza.
Ms. Hutchins is to my left, maybe 3 feet away. Yeah, it was my recollection that I might have been the first person to her. She was on the ground. Perhaps Ross Ego might have been there, which would have made sense because he was the dolly grip, and he would have been closest anybody to Helena.
Did you speak to Ms. Hutchins when you approached her?
I did.
What did you say?
Are you all right?
Did she respond?
Yes. She said, I can't feel my legs.
And when you're ready, just tell us what happened after that. And take a break if you need to.
I'm ready. I immediately left the church to make sure that 911 was being called. And then the medic appeared, and she was treating Ms. Hutchins, and I stayed out of the church just to keep space.
Do you know where the gun was in these moments after it went off? Was it, if you recall, was it left in the church? Was it taken out?
I had an assumption where the gun was. What was going through my mind, trying to determine what had happened. Again, the idea of what was in the gun that would do this to two people. Still, no ability to compute that a live round of ammunition would have been in that gun. And I said, in an effort to triage the situation, I need to know what's in that gun. I went back into the church. I went to the pew. On the pew was the revolver. I grabbed the revolver. I left the church. I went to Miss Gutierrez's cart, which is on, if you're facing the church, it would be on the left-hand side of the church, right, just immediately around the corner. I took it to her and I said, I need you to unload that gun. I need to know what's in it.
And did she unload the gun in front of you?
She did.
And what was taken out of the gun?
I recall seeing 5 dummy rounds, again with the distinctive bright brass ends to them, and 1 shell casing that did not have a projectile on it, and it had a completely distinctive looking end to it.
When you say a distinctive looking end to it, what are you referring to?
I recall it as being gray, metallic gray, and I recall that it was just completely different looking. It's hard to explain. There was some kind of machining or something. Maybe it was raised. This is my recollection, but a more contemporary looking bullet than what I was seeing in the other rounds.
And let me ask you, sir, do you own guns?
I do not.
Do you shoot guns?
No, I do not.
At any point in time in the afternoon, after lunch, did you tell Ms. Gutierrez to leave the church?
Can you say that question
Did you
again?
tell Ms. Gutierrez to leave the church?
No.
Wait, so interesting. So I guess the shell casing at that point with that specific gun wouldn't have been expelled. You would have to expel it afterwards.
Did you realize that she had left the church?
I did not.
Did you have an expectation that the armorer would stay with the gun?
That wasn't in my head at the time.
Well, but let me ask you, just in terms of your experience working on movie sets with guns and armorers, in your experience, does the armorer hand off a gun and then walk away and leave?
That's not my experience.
Okay. At some point, did you realize that Ms. Gutierrez had not stayed in the church?
I did not realize she had not stayed in the church.
After the gun went off, where was she the next time you saw her?
At her cart.
Okay. And you just didn't know whether she was in the church or not?
I did not know.
Okay.
Oh, really? So you have to do it manually? Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah, because initially I was like, oh, how did they find the shell casing like shortly afterwards? I thought they were like looking around the church to see where it was.
Sir, did you instruct Ms. Gutierrez or request that Ms. Gutierrez put dummies in a gun?
I did not.
Did you hear anyone ask her to put dummies in a gun?
I did not.
Oh, yeah. I think I see in movies, right? Hold on. I'm trying to remember. I feel like I've seen it before, like in movies where like they shoot the revolver and then like when they're done with all of them, they have to empty all of them out and then put each one in, right? You take them out after firing. Okay. Not that I'm saying the movies are always accurate, but I think that's what I remember seeing in movies. Yeah. David says, so to be clear, he said that she handed the gun to Baldwin, ? This is what he said. It seems like there were 2 gun checks. One was, hold on, I need my fucking glasses. Dude, I took so much notes. Okay, this was after lunchtime. Gun check with Dave, hands the empty gun to Baldwin. So the first time they did a gun check, there was nothing in it. Said it was empty. She rotated it. It was completely empty. They looked into the barrel. I guess there's no obstruction. And that she handed the gun to Baldwin, the empty gun. At that point, he said that he never seen Baldwin have the gun taken away from him, but then all of a sudden, Hannah appeared back at Dave's side and said that she had already put dummies in it. That's when she opened the safety latch and he saw that there was 3 to 4 rounds. He doesn't recall that she rotated the cylinder fully, only partially. And so that's when she took the gun and then handed it to Baldwin. That's what he said. Because it was always my understanding. I mean, I guess like from what people have said to other people, it was always my understanding that, oh, is this Sarah Zachary? Oh, we might have Sarah Zachary in the stand too. It was always my understanding that he handed the gun to Alec Baldwin, but he's saying that he did not.
Now, we understand that you entered into a plea agreement. Were you placed on unsupervised probation?
Yes.
And has that time period ended?
Yes.
Approximately when did it end?
I think sometime in October.
Okay. Are you under any legal requirement other than responding to a subpoena to come in here and testify?
What has Baldwin said? I haven't watched his police interview yet. I don't know. I have no idea.
No.
Why have
Sorry.
you requirement?
I think sometime in October.
Okay. Are you under any legal requirement other than responding to a subpoena to come in here and testify?
No.
Why have you agreed to testify in this trial?
It's important to me that the truth be known. That Helena's husband and son, her family, know the truth of what happened. It's important that the cast and the crew, producers of Rust, know what happened. And it's important that the industry, the motion picture and television industry, knows what happened so that this never happens again.
All right, thank you, sir. I'll pass the witness.
You know what? I think it's time for a bathroom break. So please.
Bathroom break! Just kidding. Y'all don't get a bathroom break. No bathroom break for you. I'm just kidding. If you need to go pee, go pee. Don't get a UTI now. You don't want that ooty.
Mr. Hall. Sure.
Cross-examination. Done by Mr. Bowles.
And then one
Shooting. Charles, good afternoon.
All right.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Charles, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Sir, I want to start with a question that we have. Can you say again what you saw when she unloaded the gun after the shooting incident?
That's a jury question.
Yes.
I recall seeing 5 rounds, which were dummy rounds. They had the bright brass ends to them, holes drilled in the side of the shell casing. The projectile still on top of the shell casing, and then one shell casing without a projectile. on top of it with a distinctively different looking end of the bullet.
Mr. Halls, on that portion of it, when you say distinctively looking in, can you describe that a little more?
It was a metallic gray color versus the bright brass coloring of the other rounds, and it just, from my recollection, there was a different kind of style to the end of that bullet. In my mind, there was maybe some raised machining, if you will, or something. That's just my recollection.
Okay, sir, and do you mean the end of the casing?
End of the casing.
So you're talking about the top of the casing, the end of it. Are you talking the top that would be empty, or the bottom of it with the primer, where the primer would have been?
Do we have a picture of this in evidence? We must have, right? I want to see what it looks like.
If the end of the casing is round,
Okay.
I'm looking at a full circle of the end of a shell casing.
Okay, I'm just
It is sped up a bit, yes.
trying to figure out, there wasn't still a projectile on that round.
There was no projectile on that round.
So you're just talking about the casing and the top of that.
I'm talking about where the primer would be.
Where the primer would be. So that's on the bottom of the round.
Yes.
Okay. And you said on the bottom there's a distinctively gray kind of color?
Counsel, can you approach?
Look at the judge.
Okay, sir. Just
Do we have a picture?
approach. Okay. So you indicated that resembled the round you were talking about?
It resembles the dummy rounds that I saw. The
Okay.
ends of the dummy rounds that I saw.
The 5 dummy rounds?
Yes, sir.
Does it resemble that sixth casing?
No,
Okay. So it looked even different than that. Than what we just saw. It didn't look like that.
it did not look like that.
Okay. Okay, we may come back to that, but I appreciate that explanation. Now let me ask you some preliminary questions about your background. How long
How
have you
was
been in
this
the film
needed?
industry?
I started in the film industry, I think, around 1985.
So, 30 years?
You should see it.
Or
Yes,
actually,
over
40 years. My math is, let me see, 15, so almost 40.
from 2021. I retired from the industry.
Okay, somewhere in there, almost 30 years.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You retired that year.
And you've been a first assistant director for quite some time. How many years have you done that?
Since the mid-90s, since around 1995.
How many films over the years have you worked as a first assistant director? Do you recall?
I don't have a
Okay.
number, really. I don't. It's
That's-
over 20. It could be 30.
Okay, and how many have you worked on where there's been an armor? Approximately.
I'm sorry, sir. I would really have to sit down and look at my resume. For sure, 10.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I'm not holding you to a number, but of those 10, those approximate 10, have you ever worked on a set where there's been a part-time armor?
No.
Okay, so Rust Film was the first time you've ever been on a set involving somebody doing armor duties and something else, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Here you were aware that Ms. Gutierrez-Reed was performing functions of armor and props assistant?
I was.
Okay. Now, sir, as I understand, you did not have any concerns during the Rust set about Ms. Gutierrez-Reed's work.
I did not.
Did you believe that she was diligent in her checks of firearms on set?
I did.
Okay. Let's just give an example, there'd be a day where guns were going to be used and Ms. Gutierrez-Reed was present as armor. Would she ask you to do weapons checks with her?
Yes.
Okay. And sir, when she does a weapons check with you, is that to open and show you the barrel and make sure there's no barrel obstructions?
Yes.
And I think you described earlier that with the revolver, you could see down through it. The light goes through, you could see through the barrel.
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you also recall Ms. Gutierrez-Reed had a tool to push down the barrel to make sure there's no obstructions?
I don't recall seeing
Okay.
that tool.
But would you describe her as very diligent in that process when there was a weapons check required, that she would do that with you?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know of any instance before the 21st where she did not do those weapons checks when they needed to be done with you?
None whatsoever.
Okay. I know that you would have safety meetings. Now, would you have those every day of the set?
We did not have them every day.
Okay. And I know sometimes, do you recall getting emails that people wanted to have safety meetings?
Yes.
Okay. And at one of the safety meetings, do you remember Ms. Gutierrez-Reed helping you with a presentation as part of the briefing?
On day one, the first day, yes.
Okay, sir. And what did you think about her presentation regarding the gun portion?
I was very impressed with how she took control of the situation, was very clear and very instructive, and communicated everything very clearly and confidently.
Okay, and confidently. In your experience, having observed armors in 10 other films, did she come across as seeming competent in what she was doing?
She did.
And did she come across as seeming knowledgeable about firearms?
She did.
Okay. You said that was the first day. Do you recall there being a training for a gun training specifically for the actors and crew?
Before the shooting schedule started, there was a day devoted to Ms. Gutierrez training actors.
Okay, sir. And were you present at that?
I was.
And what was your impression of that training?
Impressed. She was confident.
I mean, he's not a gun owner. He said that even though he has like 30 to 40 years of like movie experiences, there's only been 10 movies that he's worked with an armorer, 10 out of like the 30 to 40 years. So, I mean, to him, maybe it looked like it was competent and looked like, that she knew what she was doing. But when we were looking at what the previous armor, the experienced one, when he was going over the Rust movie set and how he's like, oh, this is kind of odd. This is not good. Shouldn't do this. Shouldn't do that. It seems like it didn't look very good, So, I mean, he probably just didn't really fucking know. Maybe he wasn't paying attention to the safety trainings when all the other armorers were giving trainings,
There were
Oh, no.
some male actors, and she didn't seem to be intimidated by them, and I felt that they respected her.
Did you participate in that training?
I was just an observer.
Okay. So, in the time that you saw her doing armor duties, you didn't have any complaints about her?
No.
Okay. Now, Mr. Halls, you know that she was also doing props duties. Did you ever witness her doing specific props duties, like rolling cowboy cigarettes or propping up actors?
I recall seeing her helping in propping up actors, yes.
Okay. Now, we saw some videos earlier today of some of the scenes, and it looked like there was fairly gun-heavy scenes at times. And so there would be a lot of people walking around, some people holding weapons. Do you recall that?
Yes, there were.
Right, because I think so far the people that have said that Hannah seemed competent and they were impressed by her knowledge was him and the other person, Ro. And Ro was also sort of like one of her like higher up supervisor type of person. So I feel like all those people, it's possible that they could just be covering their asses and say, yeah, we thought she was competent. We truly did. We had no idea. Meanwhile, you had people that were not the higher ups. There were people that were part of like the camera crew or the grip who was like, excuse me, guns were left around on the cart. Excuse me, there were some discharges. So, I mean, I guess I could see what you're saying, David Puff. Gotta distinguish now.
Yes.
Okay. Now, there were a couple instances where
Nicole,
it appeared
bye.
that muzzles were of weapons were getting traced across people. Now, do you recall anything like that?
Can you clarify?
Sure. There was some testimony, and some videos where, for example, a stuntman was holding a weapon, and he was kind of turning around, and it was coming across the muzzle across other people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall anything like that?
I don't recall anything.
Okay. Some of those, it appeared you were present on the videos. But do you remember any instances where you felt like there was an unsafe condition with the way people were pointing their muzzles?
I did not.
No.
If I did, it was part of my practice that I always, I would say, please point the gun away. If their action as an actor was to point it at another actor, I would say, please, especially live fire situations, please make sure you're pointing the gun away from that actor.
So your habit in practice was if you saw something like that, you would tell them, please point that gun a different direction.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Now, we saw another video where it appeared Mr. Baldwin was running out of a shack or a structure, and the cameras are panning over, and he's shooting as he's coming out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a camera, and it's a blank. They're shooting blanks out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall that scene?
I do.
Okay. Do you recall that the cameras were sort of right in front of Mr. Baldwin as he's coming out and shooting?
I do.
Do you remember having any concerns about the safety of that shot with Mr. Baldwin shooting a blank and the camera being right there? And we're not sure how many feet away, but it was...
There was a number of situations whenever there was a camera that needed to be close to a gun being...
Also, Nicole, Sarah Zachary's going to testify too. I think that's Sarah Zachary in the stand, so you definitely have to watch the rest of this.
Fired with a blank, I would ask the operator, do you feel safe? And I would suggest that they would put we call them fernie pads, but they're basically a packing blanket that you would see when you're moving furniture or something that typically people can wear in that situation.
Okay, sir. So, and you had a lot of experience leading up to that movie, but when you saw something like that, you said your habit in practice was to talk to the person behind the camera.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you remember a scene where, it was actually that same scene, where Mr. Baldwin ran up the hill with the child actor at the end of that scene, and there was a yell for cut, and then Mr. Baldwin shoots after the yell for cut, and he cusses, utters a cuss word. Do you remember that?
I only recall it because it was shown to me during a deposition in December.
Yes, sir. And I recall that was shown to you.
Yes, it was.
Now, your memory of that, did you at the time think that was a safety concern, that cut had been yelled and Mr. Baldwin shot after the directive?
I didn't register as a safety concern.
Okay. Did Mr. Baldwin at times direct people on those scenes, like the camera people, the armor? Did he sort of order people how he wanted to do it?
Again, this is recalling what was shown to me in the deposition, and he was clearly pointing a gun and asking the person that he was pointing the gun at in the direction to, please move.
Okay.
Move away from where he's pointing the gun.
Do you remember at times Mr. Baldwin rushing people to keep going, reload, let's go, let's go, let's go? Do you remember that?
Again, I was shown a video where Mr. Baldwin says, let's go. I don't characterize that as Mr. Baldwin rushing people.
Okay.
I think I characterize it as an actor in his moment. I'm ready. Okay, let's go. There was never any Mr. Baldwin rushing anybody.
Okay. So you never felt like Mr. Baldwin was rushing? Okay.
I mean, it looked like it was being rushed, and we saw how quickly Hannah was working because she was trying to reload us as fast as he can. It looked like he was rushing. Like the let's go from, you know, all the energy, and then also let's fucking go and hurry and re-round this shit. You should have another gun ready that's already loaded. I think it was a mixture of both.
Whatsoever.
Okay.
The adrenaline and also like
Now, let me
hurry the
talk to you
fuck up.
about, you became aware of 2 negligent discharges on set, did you not?
I did.
And do you remember those were approximately October 16th, 2021?
Approximately, yes.
Were you present and witness either of those incidents?
I was.
Which one or both?
Both.
Okay. At the time that you witnessed them, do you know then that one involved Sarah Zachary
Yes.
and the other involved a stunt double?
Yes, Blake.
Blake.
Yep.
Okay. What did you do in response to each of those safety incidents?
I didn't do anything. When Blake's long gun went off, I said, "What the f is going on in there?" And he replied, "It just went off."
Okay. And so you questioned him briefly. He said that the gun just went off. Did you ask him anything else about it?
I did not.
And how about with regard to Miss Zachary?
I did not.
Okay.
Say anything.
Now, you know that that there is a thing called a production report.
I do.
And a production report is something that has the daily events, anything significant that happened that day. Is that right?
Yes.
Would that be something that ordinarily would be put into a production report?
It's such a rare situation. I couldn't answer you. I don't think it would be a normal thing.
Well, but whose responsibility would it be to make the production report?
It would be the second assistant director.
Okay. Would you have any responsibility to report that yourself?
I would.
And now, would this be something that you would consider noteworthy that maybe someone up the chain would want to know about?
At the time, it didn't seem to be noteworthy. It was just, it happened. I don't know, other than, don't.
Sorry, I got distracted. Hold on.
Baldwin shoots after the yell for cut and he cusses, utters a cuss word. Actually,
Take on away. If their action as an actor was to point it out.
on those scenes, like the camera people, the armor, did he sort of order people how he wanted to do it?
Again, this is recalling what was shown to me in the deposition, and he was clearly pointing a gun and asking the person that he was pointing the gun at in the direction to, please move.
Okay.
Move away from where he's pointing the gun.
Do you remember at times Mr. Baldwin rushing people to keep going, reload this?
When Blake's long gun went off, I said, "What the f is going on in there?" And he replied, "It just went off."
Okay. And so you questioned him briefly. He said that the gun just went off. Did you ask him anything else about it?
I did not.
And how about with regard to Miss Zachary?
I did not.
Okay.
Say anything.
Now, you know that that there is a thing called a production report.
I do.
And a production report is something that has the daily events, anything significant that happened that day. Is that right?
Yes.
Would that be something that ordinarily would be put into a production report?
It's such a rare situation. I couldn't answer you. I don't think it would be a normal thing.
Well, but whose responsibility would it be to make the production report?
It would be the second assistant director.
Okay. Would you have any responsibility to report that yourself?
I would.
And now, would this be something that you would consider noteworthy that maybe someone up the chain would want to know about?
At the time, it didn't seem to be noteworthy. It was just, it happened. I don't know, other than, don't do that again. I don't know really what else could be done.
And again, it wasn't one, it was 2 discharges. And they were happening like back to back. If it was for the one, maybe it's like, okay, it won't happen again. But it was like 2 different people. At that point, wouldn't you be getting on the armorer's ass? Like, what the fuck is going on here? What are you doing? Or what are you not doing? Where were you?
If we stop, call a meeting, don't do that again. That's the only.
Did it ever occur to you that perhaps some additional training might have been warranted for those people that had the misfires, the negligent discharges?
No.
Why did it not occur to you that maybe they needed some more training, for example, on how to hold that hammer and prevent that from falling too quickly? Why did that not occur to you?
Well, for the stunt doubles case, I'm assuming that he was an experienced stunt person that had experience with firearms, and I guess I made an assumption that Sarah had some experience in training.
And what did you make that assumption on? That assumption?
experience. Just
Okay. So, in response to those negligent discharges, there's nothing that happens. Now, did you become aware of another discharge by special effects? Were you aware of that?
No,
Okay.
I was not.
Did you, are you aware of the safety bulletins put out by SAG?
I am.
And did you ever know that they were, or whether they were attached to the call sheets?
They were not.
Do you know who would attach those? Would that be you, if they were going to be attached?
It would be a member of my department that would do it.
Do you know why those safety bulletins were not attached?
It's not a requirement, written requirement.
Okay.
Some AD departments do it, some don't.
Now, the safety bulletin goes over the rules about firearm safety, doesn't it?
Yes,
And so that's something that, but you're saying that just varies, that some people do it, some don't?
yes.
Okay. You talked earlier about when you would make an announcement that there would be gun usage or live fire with blanks, you had a wireless microphone.
I did.
Well, how did that work? Would that transmit through a radio or to other people, or you would just announce it on the microphone?
Often I would do it simultaneously pushed. I would have a little microphone lapel, it would be up here. And that's normally how I would communicate. It was never. No, I usually would do it by hand with the walkie-talkie, and I would. There were times where I would do it simultaneously with the wireless microphone in my.
Hey,
in my
John.
walkie-talkie.
So if you, that wireless microphone, would it just transmit into the general area around you?
Yes.
And then if you do that at the same time as your walkie-talkie, did that effectively communicate through your radio with your microphone? I mean, did that have any issues with that?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay. Now, what channel, I know there's different channels on this set, what channel would you normally communicate those announcements on?
Channel 1.
Channel 1. And do you know whether the armors were always on channel 1 or if they had a different channel?
They better have been.
Well, and I'm not saying any given time. I'm not talking about a given moment at this point. I'm just asking you, did the armors have another channel?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Sometimes the departments might designate another channel to go
Wait, do y'all have the link for the podcast that you said Hannah was on when she was talking about being hired for the Nicolas Cage movie and shit like that?
to for a private conversation. Typically, channel 2 is devoted just to if there's a longer conversation that needs to happen. People can go to channel 2.
Okay. And then props, did they have their own channel?
They're on channel 1.
Okay, channel 1 is props. Okay.
Yes.
On the day in question, on the 21st, you knew that Video Village was down?
Yes.
And can you tell, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, can you tell the jury a little bit more about Video Village just so they understand it? Where was this set up?
Video Village is basically a pop-up tent that you would see a party or an event. What are they, 10 by 10 or something like that? And then the sides would be blacked out so that no daylight could get into this what is the Video Village, where there's a monitor. In this case, it was a large monitor, for 42 inches LED flat screen monitor, and that Video Village in the industry, that is referring to this place that the director of photography, the director, producers, the script supervisor can see the action, can see the shot being filmed on this monitor.
Now, ordinarily, if that were set up on that day, Ms. Hutchins and Mr. Souza would have been in that tent watching Video Village. Is that right, sir?
That's
Okay.
that's my feeling. Right?
And because the camera crew had walked out, or the next day Video Village is not operational, is that right?
That's my understanding. Yes.
Okay. And is that why ultimately there was kind of a change and people were inside the church?
That's my understanding of it. Is.
Did you know on the day, on the 21st, that things were a couple hours behind?
Very well aware of it.
Yes, sir, and I know. Did that camera crew that walked off, did they come back that next day? The camera crew that walked off the day before, did they come back the next day?
They came back. I saw them there that morning to retrieve with some of their personal items, I would think. Yeah.
Were you able to meet with the new camera crew that came that day?
Not until they first appeared on set with the camera. It took a while for them to get the camera built into set.
So this is literally, they're coming on that morning and they're building a camera into set.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, once they get that set up, things start rolling. Before lunch, you described that you're in the church with Mr. Baldwin, is that right? There's other people in there, but you're in that church with Mr. Baldwin?
Yes.
Now, I think you said at some point Miss Gutierrez Reed came in the church and she presented the revolver, is that right?
We're talking about after lunch?
No, this is before lunch.
Yes, we did some scenes with Mr. Baldwin and the actor that was portraying his grandson.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was before lunch.
That was before lunch.
Did Miss Gutierrez Reed bring that
Yes.
revolver before lunch?
Yes.
And was that when you said that she showed it to you and it was empty?
That was one of the occasions on that day that she showed me that the gun was empty, yes.
Okay, so that was one of the occasions. What was the other occasion that she showed you it was empty?
After lunch.
Okay, so we start off before lunch. and the revolver is empty. Now, is he doing the same, Mr. Baldwin doing the same blocking scene?
It is not my recollection. I don't recall him doing that.
Okay.
That scene.
So it's a different type of scene, but in any event, there's an empty firearm. There's no rounds loaded in that. Is that right?
That's correct.
Was there any reason why a rubber or a replica gun wasn't used?
Is there any reason why a replica? Because it would look like a rubber gun.
Or was it a rehearsal or actual filming?
At what time period are we talking about, sir?
Before lunch.
I recall just the dialogue scene between Mr. Baldwin and the actor playing his grandson, and it was just the gun in his holster.
Okay. Do you not recall him, Mr. Baldwin, pulling that out before lunch?
I don't recall that before lunch.
Okay. Well, after lunch, you said that Ms. Gutierrez Reed brought the firearm back again, and you said initially you're saying that it was unloaded again.
Yes.
Did she again show you the barrels and check that gun with you?
Oh my God, this podcast was a month before the shooting happened. Ay, ay, ay.
I'm sorry. After lunch.
Yes.
Yes. She held the gun. Let's do the gun check. Just check the barrel. Did a full rotation of the drum of the cylinder.
Okay.
Oh.
And then what? And then I think you said after that she walked over a few steps, and what you're saying is she handed the firearm to Mr. Baldwin. Is that
That's
right?
correct.
Now, you then say that you don't see her leave, right?
I recall seeing her walk.
Okay, sorry, this is
Let's
before
do
lunch, right?
The gun check.
The barrels out before lunch.
I don't recall that before lunch.
Okay. Well, after lunch, you said that Ms. Gutierrez Reed brought the firearm back again, and you said initially you're saying that it was unloaded again.
Yes.
Did she again show you the barrels and check that gun with you?
I'm sorry. After lunch.
Yes.
Yes. She held the gun. Let's do the gun check. Just check the barrel. Did a full rotation of the drum of the cylinder.
Okay.
Oh.
And then what? And then I think you said after that she walked over a few steps, and what you're saying is she handed the firearm to Mr. Baldwin. Is that
That's
right?
correct.
Now, you then say that you don't see her leave, right?
I recall seeing her walk past me. She gives the gun to Mr. Baldwin, turns and walks away.
Where did she walk away to? Did you
She
see?
walked past me. I didn't see where she went.
You did not see her leave the church, though. Did you?
I did not.
But then you also testified that at some point she's back beside you with the firearm again, and it's got rounds in it. Is that right?
She told me that she put dummy rounds in the gun.
So, when you were near Mr. Baldwin, that church does it have one entrance?
I believe so. Yeah, I think it's only there might be a door that I didn't see in the back where the altar would be, but certainly at the front of the church.
Front of the church.
Yeah.
So, and how big is that church?
Oh,
Do y'all think it's going to be possible for her to testify and maybe save herself?
20 by 30, 20.
It's approximately
feet?
600 square feet, roughly.
I'll let you do that math, Mr. Bowles.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I think it's about 600 square feet. So within that,
It would be, the width would be from pretty much from here to that wall, and then where we entered.
okay, so for the record, you're pointing with your left hand to the side of the judge's desk, to Her Honor's desk, and the wall on the other side.
Mhm.
And then
No.
from where you're seated to right behind counsel?
Yes.
Okay, where you come in. Okay. So that's about the size of the church. Now, you are sitting there fairly close to Mr. Baldwin, right?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Standing there.
And then you say you don't see Ms. Gutierrez leave at all, Ms. Gutierrez Reed leave, and then she comes back with a firearm again. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, now, you then state that she shows you what you believe are 3 or 4 rounds in the firearm?
Yes, sir.
And did she do that how did she do that?
I don't know if she did a full rotation. I don't recall a full rotation. But my recollection is seeing 3 to 4 rounds.
So if she had done a full rotation, you would have seen every cylinder in that, right?
In retrospect, I would like to think I would have. Yes.
Because after everything happens, we know that she said it's unloaded and there's 5 dummies in 1 casing. So that's 6, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So is it possible that you did see every cylinder, or how do you reconcile that? There's 3 or 4 rounds before, but there's 6 rounds after.
Because there was not a full rotation of the cylinder to show me 6 rounds. Again, my recollection is only seeing 3 to 4.
But you don't recall whether that was a full rotation or not.
I don't recall if it was a full rotation or not. Yeah.
Now if that had not been, that would not be a full weapons check with you, correct?
Yes, I have stated that, yes.
Okay. But yet you testified earlier, every time before this, since the start of the Rust filming, Ms. Gutierrez Reed always did a complete weapons check with you.
Yes.
So you're saying that this time, for whatever reason, she abandoned her habit and everything she had done before, and you had praised her for doing a good job.
Mhm.
And somehow on this occasion, you're saying that there wasn't a full rotation. Is that right?
Yes.
Well, why didn't you say something? That I'd like to see.
Again,
all
this is what I am admitting to, that I did an improper check of that firearm.
And so, after you admittedly do an improper check of the firearm, isn't it true that you handed that firearm to Mr. Baldwin?
It's not true.
Do you know that your account conflicts with Mr. Baldwin's?
I am aware of that.
And do you know that it conflicts with Ms. Gutierrez-Reed?
I am aware of that, but however, in Mr. Baldwin's initial statement with Detective Hancock, a few hours after the incident on October 21st, when asked the question who handed him the gun, he said Hannah did, like she always did.
And after that, he changed and said you had handed it to him, right?
Yes.
Okay. Right after this happened, the shooting happened. Do you remember you were standing outside with Mr. Baldwin talking with him, kind of near a truck?
Yes, I do.
Do you recall what you all were talking about? Were you talking about the events and kind of how this could have happened? And
Yeah, yes.
so you were kind of discussing and kind of trying to remember with each other what had occurred. Is that fair?
Most of the discussion was what was it that entered their bodies? And I think to a person that was sequestered, that was the tone of the discussion. And certainly the discussions that I had with Mr. Baldwin, we were both, was it a blank? Was it just that idea of a live round, again, being on a film set was just uncomputable.
Was it inconceivable that there would be a live round on set?
Yes.
And in fact, I mean, did you ever dream that there would be a live round? And you're thinking, talking to Mr. Baldwin, did you have any thought of that?
Honestly, no.
Okay. Yeah. Now, after you all talked, Mr. Baldwin, did you talk with him again after the shooting and after that day, the 21st?
No.
Okay. If at the moment that this had happened, I know you indicate that Ms. Gutierrez-Reed gave him the firearm, but if you had provided him the firearm, which you're denying, I know, you're saying that didn't happen. If that had happened, and Ms. Gutierrez-Reed were not in the church at that moment, that would have been your responsibility under the safety bulletin to ensure the safe operation, right?
Can you state that again and clarify?
Yeah, that was pretty long. Under the safety bulletin, if the property master and armor are not present during a gun scene, and you were the person there, do you agree with me that the responsibility would then fall on the first assistant director in a general scene for safety?
I don't recall seeing any language about the assistant director taking responsibility for the firearm if there is a prop master or armor not present.
Sorry, I was saying I don't know what's going on with the YouTube chat. It's just like really delayed. It's moving along, I think, but it's just like delayed. I don't know. I think like I think it's just fucked because we had a stream up and then it went down and then now it's back up and then Stream Element's just being stupid. I don't know.
Okay, sir, do you recall giving a deposition in this matter?
Yes.
Okay, and if I can just, before I get into that, I just want to kind of give you a few more details, see if you remember, that under the safety advisory bulletin, that the first assistant director becomes the person responsible for maintaining and handling weapons if the property master and armor are not present. Do you recall that?
I don't recall that language.
Okay.
If you're saying it's there, and you can, yeah.
Well, do you recall being in this on page 121 at line 6? If you had known that had you known that she wasn't in the church, meaning Hannah, under this guideline, would you perhaps be the individual responsible for maintaining and handling weapons? And your answer: if I knew that she was to be leaving the church, yes, it would. And knowing that the gun was cold, as I believed it to be, as she believed it to be, as Mr. Baldwin was told it was to be, yes, I would be that person. I have worked in productions where an actor would have a gun. Do you remember that portion?
Yes.
Okay. And there's one more portion you gave just for completeness. And maybe the actor wasn't necessarily on set, and the prop master who was handling the guns, because there was no live fire, again, it's a prop. So the prop master is responsible for these guns. He would often say, not often, but there have been a couple occasions where I have to go to my cart, get something. Can you watch the gun? And I would watch the gun. Do you recall giving that answer, sir?
I do.
Okay. And does that refresh your memory that if you know that they're not present, that sometimes you may be responsible?
If I knew that they were not present, yes, I would be, I guess, the next one in line to be responsible, yes.
Okay. And so your testimony is that you did not know that Hannah had left the church. So my question was, if that had occurred, if she had left the church, and you had provided the gun to Baldwin, would you have been responsible? And I think what you said is you didn't know she left the church. Is that right?
I did not know that she left the church.
Okay. Do you recall checking that weapon, regardless of who handed it to Mr. Baldwin? Do you recall checking that weapon again by yourself?
I never checked that gun by myself.
Okay. Do you recall whether Mr. Baldwin checked that gun?
I do not recall.
Okay. Had you seen Mr. Baldwin retrieve a firearm?
Yeah, so this is the interview that Rain was talking about, and this is the one that Dave Halls was talking about as well on October 21st. So detective asked, who handed you the gun that day? Baldwin. Hannah. Hannah did? Okay. And physically handed or put in the holster? Baldwin says, handed it to me. She would show me the gun. Detective says, okay. Baldwin says, or she'd say, cold gun, cold gun. She said, tested or some language to indicate that she handed me the gun, that it was fine. And she'd say, do you want me to check? And I always went something but unintelligible because we never had a problem. And I said, I'm good. So, and the first AD will periodically ask, he'll say, let me check. And they'll have two people check for this very reason. If we don't have any, forget about live rounds of bullets, or if we have any flash rounds in the gun while we're rehearsing. Because if someone wants to indicate that they're unintelligible thinking, they pull the trigger in the gun, you just hear the hammer and the dead sound of the hammer hitting, and you have no flash rounds at all in there for the rehearsal. The rehearsal gun should be empty. As I said, for the 2 weeks I've been shooting, it has been empty. We haven't had one problem. And have you physically checked that, or just by her telling you? Baldwin. She announces to me that it's clean. She'll say, cold gun, we rehearse. And then she's done. She takes the gun, goes out to a corner. She has like a kit, like a zip fanny pack with her elements in there. She puts the flash rounds in there and she'll say, oh, quarter load with the lower sound, or she'll say full load. So yeah, I mean, based on this October 21st interview, and this is the day of the shooting, he said that it was Hannah that handed him the gun.
Before from Miss Gutierrez Reed on another day?
Yes.
When you saw him before, did he check the weapon?
I don't recall.
Okay. Regarding when you and Miss Gutierrez Reed unloaded that firearm, the revolver, you walked down, I think you said you went to a cart on the left side of the church. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Now, do you recall that the prop cart at that point was near the black tent? Or where that prop cart was?
Do I recall where the cart was?
Yes.
Yes.
Where?
Left-hand side, if you're standing in front of the church, looking at the front door, left-hand side, immediately around the corner. So if the front of the church is facing north, the left-hand side of the church would be facing east. It was just directly right around the corner. Yeah.
Do you recall that prop cart moved at some point after the police had arrived?
After the police arrived?
Yes.
Yes, I have a recollection of it being in a different location.
Did you ever see Miss Sarah Zachary, over by the prop cart after the shooting?
She was present when I asked Hannah to unload the gun, yes.
Did you see whether she was inspecting anything on the cart or touching any of the items on the cart?
I don't have a recollection of her seeing her touch anything, but I do have a recollection of her making a comment that some of them don't shake.
Okay, so if she made that comment, then she must have been checking and shaking the rounds, right?
I would assume so, yeah.
Okay, did you witness that?
I did not see her actually shaking any rounds.
Okay. Did you see any other persons at that moment near the cart or at the cart?
No.
Okay.
I think I do remember Johnny. I can't pronounce his last name.
Ziello?
He was behind us. Yeah, I have a recollection of him being there.
Was that Johnny Ziello?
Yeah.
Okay. So he was there with you at or near the cart?
Near the cart. Yeah, I believe he was behind me.
Behind
I
you.
just have a recollection of seeing him there.
Okay. After the firearm, the revolver was unloaded, did you get those rounds? You personally?
No, I never touched those rounds.
Okay. Do you remember whether Miss Gutierrez Reed ever gave those to you after?
She did not give them to me.
Where did those rounds? Did she have them?
I just saw them as she unloaded the gun. They fell onto the cart, and that's my recollection of what ended up with those rounds.
Okay. And did you see anybody pick those up?
I did not.
Okay. Now, in this case, you indicated you had pled no contest, right?
Yes.
And you pled to a misdemeanor offense?
Yes, sir.
And you said that was negligent use of a firearm, correct?
Yes, sir.
You received a sentence of 6 months unsupervised probation, is that right?
Yes, sir.
So under the unsupervised probation, you did not have to report to a probation officer?
I did not.
And there was no conditions except not violating any laws, right?
I had to take a firearm safety class.
Okay. Did you complete that firearm safety course?
I did.
And so now you're off probation, and that's it, right?
I'm just going to check the relevance. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Judge. Roach.
Blank sizes, for example. When Ms. Gutierrez Reed was present in your presence, did you ever hear her call out blank sizes, for example, if they were going to be used a quarter load or a half load? Or
I do.
Okay.
Request.
I'm not aware of anyone else that requested them.
Okay.
firearms.
Do you know why dummy rounds are used in revolvers?
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, if the shot is close up enough on the revolver, I don't think you necessarily need to have experience with a firearm, but one could detect that that gun is not loaded with any rounds. So that's the reason why we use dummy rounds. Cosmetic.
Because if the revolver is pointed at me, the dummies are in there so that you can see the projectiles inside the cylinder, right?
Correct.
Is that the same way that a rifle is set up?
No, but in this case, and just from recollection, I think there was something about that long gun that you could see that the rounds would be loaded. If this was the barrel of the gun, that the rounds would be loaded somewhere, and it would be visible.
To the best of your recollection, was there actually filming of a scene that would show that part of that rifle?
Was there actually? It's only my speculation that it was a shot that was close up close up enough on that long gun that Hannah made a decision that, to make this look correct, that dummy round should be in this.
Is that your recollection or is that your assumption?
She told me that and I saw her load the dummy rounds into the long gun.
Okay, but my question for you is, dummy rounds are put in guns because you're going to roll film, right?
Yes.
Do you have a specific recollection of there being a video take of that rifle being loaded or unloaded or cycling?
We need a screenshot of that. Her sitting up on the chair with her leg up like that.
No.
Okay.
I don't remember
Put in the
that.
Discord.
Okay, thank you, sir.
There's no recollection of a shot of that rifle being loaded.
Okay. The entire time that you worked with Ms. Gutierrez on the set of Rust, do you have any recollection of ever seeing her shake a dummy round?
I do not.
Yikes.
On cross-examination, well, also on direct, you testified that the dummy rounds that you saw come out of the revolver after the incident had shiny brass primers. Is that right?
Well, if you want to get technical, right, it would be the end of the casing, which would have the primer in the center
Okay.
of that circuit that's bright
Okay.
brass. Yes.
You understand what the primer of the casing is, correct?
I do.
And your recollection is that the dummy rounds that were taken out of the gun had shiny brass primers, right?
Yes.
And do you agree with me that States Exhibit 26, and I'm happy to come closer to you.
If you could, just
Okay,
for,
well, let's do that. Let me show you States
little-
Exhibit 26 again. Shiny brass primer?
honestly, my recollection is that they were a little bit more shinier than what you're showing me.
Well, hang on. Is that close enough for you? And I know I have old eyes also, so I sympathize with you.
I'm sorry. Are you calling Neil? I am. That's all.
Is that primer brass?
The primer does not appear to be brass.
Okay, thank you, sir. And let me ask you, when was the last time, well, you saw a spent casing come out of that revolver, correct?
I did.
When was the last time you saw that spent casing?
At the moment when I asked her to unload the gun.
On October 21st, 2021?
Yes.
All right. I just want to clear up a point that on cross-examination I was a little confused about. You indicated that Mr. Baldwin initially said that Hannah handed him the gun and then changed his story.
Yes.
Did he change his story, if you recall, during the interview with Detective Hancock on the 21st?
No.
Did he change it after that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know when the first time was that you realized that he had a different version of events?
The TV interview?
It was shortly after when when Hannah made a statement that that I gave the gun to Baldwin.
I'm just wondering when that would have
I
been.
don't know. It was months, maybe.
Months after October.
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Bowles asked you about the safety bulletins and that when the armorer isn't present, that the first assistant director is kind of in charge of guns, right?
Yes.
Is it your understanding that that safety bulletin contemplates the first assistant director being told that the armorer is going to leave the area?
I don't. That's not in that document.
How are you supposed to know that she's left if you're not told that she's left?
Correct. I only know that she's left if she's telling me she's leaving or if I see her leave.
Okay. And as first assistant director, you have a lot of other responsibilities other than checking the gun and keeping an eye on the armorer, don't you?
I do.
Okay. Okay.
Talk into the microphone and have a seat.
Oh man. Okay, Sarah, why did you throw it away in the trash? She needs to explain to us why she did that. I think this is Sarah Zachary.
I want you to move that microphone closer to you. Thank you. Will you state your name for the record?
Sarah Zachary.
Oh, it's her. Okay, so apparently Sarah Zachary, maybe under the instructions of Seth Halls, the PDQ props person, maybe after the shooting happened, she took some live ammunition or something from other guns and threw it in the trash. And then they were like, what happened to it? We don't know. So that's why we want to know what she's going to say up there.
Ms. Zachary, in 2021, were you doing work in the film industry?
Yes.
Are you still doing work in the film industry?
No.
Why not?
After arrest, I didn't want to work in it anymore.
Okay. Were you employed on the set of the movie Rust?
Yes.
In what capacity?
I was the prop master.
And briefly, what does a prop master do?
A prop master is responsible for sourcing and providing production with anything that an actor interacts with during the time of filming.
So when you say anything that an actor interacts with, does that include firearms?
It does.
Does it include hand
Holy shit,
sanitizer?
look.
If the actor is touching it, then yes.
Okay. A bowl of soup?
If the actor is touching it.
Okay. Any of those things?
Any.
Tables, chairs?
That would be set deck.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Anything that they hold.
Okay. What was your experience in the film industry before you began work on the set of Rust?
I began in the art department as set deck, and then on one production, I was supposed to be in costumes, but then I became a prop master when the original prop master couldn't work on it anymore. So I had to learn on the job how to do that, and that's what what job I progressed with throughout my career in film.
What is set deck?
Set deck, it just means that you're decorating the set.
How many films did you work on in any capacity?
Possibly like 5 or 6.
And
Okay, I read that Sarah has 5 rounds under her belt because I was just glancing and I was like, wait, what?
can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury who Seth Kenny is?
Seth Kenny was the vendor for the firearms and ammunition on the set of Rust.
Did you know Mr. Kenny prior to your work on the set of Rust?
Yes, he was a vendor for a previous film that I did before Rust.
How long had you known him before Rust?
A couple of months.
And did you ever take on a small armor role?
I did. On another film, when I was the prop master, they couldn't find a armor for that set, so they just told me right away that I was going to be the armor.
Oh, no.
And who's they? Are you talking about production?
Production, producers.
So, let me be clear. Do you own guns?
No,
Have you ever shot a gun?
no.
What kind of training, if any, did you receive before another film made you armorer?
I was recommended on a separate film to get in touch with Seth Kenny, and he was the one who trained me to use these specific guns on that set. Thank you. As well as train me how to load and unload those weapons, how to call out different cues on set when you're working with weapons. And that's about it.
How long was that training? Did it take days, hours?
A few days.
And were you trained on single action revolvers for that film?
Just one, yes.
It was a revolver?
It was a revolver.
Was it a single action revolver?
That I'm not sure.
Okay. That production that you were the armorer on, is that a production that had lots of gunfight scenes?
No.
How busy was that movie in terms of armorer duties?
I mean, we had the guns on set every day, but in terms of actually utilizing those guns with things such as blinks or dummies, maybe 2-3 days.
Okay. And have you, prior to Rust, is that the sum total of the experience you've had with firearms?
Yes.
So how do you end up being the prop master on Rust? Do you apply for a job? What happens?
A lot of it is word of mouth when it comes to the industry, but Seth Kenny was the one who asked me if I wanted to work on it, and he said that he had sent my resume to the line producer.
And were you interested in working on it?
I was.
And at some point in time, did you understand that you were going to be working with an armorer?
Yes, Seth Kenny said that he had an armor in mind.
And did that person turn out to be Ms. Gutierrez?
Yes.
We understand from some of the previous testimony that although you were the prop master, you were also loading and unloading some of the firearms. Is that right?
Correct.
How did you go from prop master to handling firearms?
So originally there was supposed to be a separate armorer's assistant, but production had only allotted for 5 days, and that was not going to be enough because of how how many gunfights we had that we read through the script. So instead, it was recommended that I help out since I was already going to be on set.
And
What movie was this, Sarah? Zachary? Someone looked up her resume really quick.
so, did you receive any training from Ms. Gutierrez so that you would be able to competently load and unload the guns?
Briefly, yes,
When you say briefly, how much training did you receive from Ms. Gutierrez?
a few minutes.
And had you, and let me try to back up. When I say single action revolver, do you know what I'm talking about?
Not quite, no.
Okay. So, let me ask you this. On the previous movie set that you were working on as the armorer, you said there was a revolver.
Correct.
Was that the kind of revolver where the barrel would completely come out and away from the gun for you to load and unload it?
Yes, the cylinder came out on the side.
The
Yes.
cylinder, just kind of, the entire thing flops out.
Yes.
Okay. And was that the same style of revolver as what you were using on the set of Rust?
No.
What was the difference?
The difference mainly was the way that you would load and unload it. Part of that maneuver was pulling back the hammer and the trigger at the same time, and then slowly releasing both of those to lock it back in place.
Okay. And that was something that was very new to you, is that right?
Correct.
The first time you'd ever done that was on the set of Rust.
Yes.
And you got 10 minutes of training.
About, yes.
Discharges on the set. Do you recall those?
Correct, yeah.
Did one of them involve you?
Yes.
Can you just explain to the jury what the circumstances were of that accidental discharge?
Yes. So we had a gunfight between a few different actors where I was helping to load blanks, and when we were going in for another take, I had to unload the blanks that were already discharged and fill the gun with new ones. And as I was loading them and locking the gun back into place, the hammer slipped from my thumb, and one of the rounds went off. There was no projectile, so it was just a loud pop and a flash.
Did that incident, well, let me ask you this, if you recall, do you recall where Ms. Gutierrez was, the reason that you were doing it, not her?
I believe at that
Bathroom?
point she was in the bathroom.
And
With her
did
pants
that
down.
incident create any kind of a conflict between you and Ms. Gutierrez?
She just didn't know if I would be capable to work with guns anymore after that, even though I had cleared everything that happened on set. I apologized to everyone. I messaged the people I need to let them know what happened. But, I mean, there was just a little bit of disagreement, but then we moved on.
Okay. Who did you message to notify people of what happened?
I messaged Seth, Kenny, Ro Walters, and the production designer, Brian Norvell.
And was Brian Norvell kind of a supervisor of yours?
I would say so. That's what I saw him as.
Okay. You have previously been referred to as being Hannah Gutierrez's boss. Were you Hannah's boss?
Not that I was aware of.
In terms of firearms and firearms safety on set, whose job was that?
The armors.
I bet you they hate each other now.
To the best of your recollection, on approximately how many occasions, well, let me back up. Did you aid in loading guns and gun belts with dummy rounds?
Guns, yes, the gun belts already had dummy rounds in them.
Okay, let's talk about that. So, in terms of the props, the gun belt props for this movie, do you recall who sourced those? Where did they come from?
As far as I know, Hannah brought them from a different set.
From another movie she'd worked on?
Correct.
And remember, these live ammunition were found like on the cart, and then they were also found on the bandoliers as well. And, you know, Hannah said she bought the bandoliers herself from another set. That's why a lot of people think that it's Hannah that brought the live ammunition.
Did you see them?
Yes.
And when they arrived on set, were they empty, or did they have to be loaded with dummies?
They only had to have a couple at most put in them because they were lost, fell out. That's about it.
Okay, but the gun belts that Ms. Gutierrez provided were already loaded with dummies when she brought them on set. Is that your understanding?
That's my understanding, yes.
And that's your recollection?
Yes.
And you saw them?
Yes.
So when she brought them on set and they were already loaded with dummies, did you take the time to remove every dummy and shake them?
No.
Did you see her take the time to remove every dummy from the belts and shake them?
No.
Did you see anyone?
No.
Because you guys had another assistant for a little while, Ms. Montoya, is that right?
Correct.
And did Ms. Montoya, you never saw her do that with those?
That wasn't her job, no.
Okay. So, do you begin working on the movie on the first day of filming?
No, we have prep days where we go through the script and prepare everything that we need to start production.
Do you recall the day that filming began?
October 6th.
And when would you have begun work on this movie?
I was contacted on September 23rd, and I had about until October 6th to prep for that.
Because you are the prop master, did you participate in getting guns and ammunition from the vendor to the movie set?
Yes.
Who was the vendor for the guns? Where did the guns come from?
Seth Kenny,
And what's the name of the company that he owns?
PDQ Props and Arms.
And what about the blank ammunition? Who provided that?
Seth Kenny.
In terms of the dummy ammunition, can you explain to the jury what the situation was with dummy availability at the beginning of the movie?
We had, Seth Kenny and another vendor named Billy Ray had provided a few boxes of dummy rounds.
Were those dummy rounds 45 long Colt?
No.
So at the beginning of the movie, had Seth Kenny provided any 45 long Colt dummies?
No.
At some point during filming, did Mr. Kenny provide 45 long Colt dummies?
Yes.
And how were those provided?
Hannah had requested for 45 long Colts, and on one of our weekends, around October 12th, I went and picked them up from Albuquerque on one of her days off.
So you picked up the first box of 45 long Colt dummies from Mr. Kenny on October 12th.
Correct.
Was that the only box of 45 long Colt dummies that Mr. Kenny ever provided?
Correct.
When Ms. Gutierrez brought the gun belts and they already had the dummy rounds in them, if you recall, did she also have boxes of dummy rounds?
I don't remember what she provided.
Okay. You just don't recall?
I just don't remember. No.
Okay. Was there an issue with the 45 long Colt dummies? Were you struggling? Did you guys not have enough?
As far as I was concerned, Hannah just had requested them. I felt like we had plenty to work with, but she said that they just didn't, the ones that we did have just didn't fit quite as right.
Okay. In terms of the dummy rounds,
Oh, court breaking out early today. This court is so funny.
during the time that you were working on Rust, who was the person in the position to make a decision about whether or not to use dummies?
Hannah.
Was there ever a time that you heard anyone else, a crew member or a cast member, request that dummies be put in a gun?
No.
During the time that you were working with Ms. Gutierrez on Rust, approximately how many times that you're aware of were guns dummied up, were dummies put in guns?
I don't recall. A handful of times, maybe.
A handful of times.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you participate? Were you handling the dummies?
Yes.
And why were you handling the dummies?
It was usually if there were 2 or more guns on set to move things along, because I was also acting as an assistant for her when it came to the weapons.
Okay.
Hi, Granny.
So
Did
you're
you?
the prop master. Technically, she's kind of under you, but you were also sort of her assistant.
Correct.
Okay. So with regard to your handling of dummy rounds on set, where were they? How would you get them? Did you get them from Ms. Gutierrez, or did you have access to them?
I had access to them.
And where were they located?
Originally on the prop truck, and then as far as I know, we brought them on the cart when we needed them.
Okay. When you loaded a gun with dummies, what did you do to make sure that the rounds were dummy rounds and not live rounds?
Rattle them.
Did all of the dummy rounds that you handled, did they all rattle?
Yes.
Were there any dummy rounds on set that had holes in them?
Yes.
I thought she said she didn't take the time to rattle them, or was it only the ones that are on the gun belts?
And did you ever handle any of those?
No.
Did you ever see Ms. Gutierrez load dummy rounds into any of the revolvers?
I wasn't paying attention to her loading them.
You weren't paying attention?
No.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you load the revolvers with all the dummy rounds, or was that something she did also?
She did them as well.
Okay. In the entire time that you worked with Ms. Gutierrez on the set of Rust, do you have any recollection of a single time that you saw her rattle a dummy?
I can't recall.
You don't recall ever seeing her do that?
No.
Okay. And does that mean she may have and you just didn't see it?
Correct.
Were you guys working pretty closely together?
Yes.
And you don't recall ever seeing her do that?
Not that I can remember.
Okay. Now,
The gun belts? Okay.
Do you recall any time that dummy rounds were loaded into a lever action rifle? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Because Hannah has said so many times that she would shake the box, she would rattle the dummies. That's what she was saying in her interviews. But in her interviews, it was like shaking the box or rattling like two of them at the same time.
Yes,
You know the rifle I'm talking about?
I am.
Okay. Do you recall an occasion when dummy rounds were loaded into that rifle?
I remember blanks, but not dummy rounds.
Okay. Did you ever load blanks or dummies into that rifle?
No,
Did you ever load blanks or dummies into the revolver that was Mr. Baldwin's prop?
no.
Didn't this girl throw away the bullets in the gun? I can't wait to get to that part because I want to know why the fuck did she do that? Why? Sarah!
And why not? Was there some kind of a division of labor agreement there?
Hannah was just working closely with Alec, and so when Alec requested the guns, he would call for Hannah.
Okay. And you never loaded or unloaded it?
No, not that I recall.
One box from Seth Kinney. To be clear, the only 45 long Colt dummy rounds that you brought to the set was the one box from Seth Kinney.
Correct.
And do you know where the other 45 long Colt dummies came from?
No.
When you were working on set, did you occasionally take photos with your cell phone?
Yes,
And what was the purpose of taking photos with your cell phone?
mainly for continuity.
And what do you mean when you say continuity?
With continuity, during a scene, you do several takes during the scene, and you just want to make sure that with the props that they look exactly the same throughout each take. So you want to make sure that there's continuity throughout the entire scene.
And I'm going to shift gears for a moment. Did you bring onto the set the dummy rounds from Billy Ray?
Yes.
Were those 45 long Colt?
No.
And what day did you bring those onto the set?
I brought those ones on prior to filming, I believe.
Okay, so it would have been before October 6th.
That one I can't recall. I don't remember what date it was.
Okay, is there anything, do you have anything that would refresh your memory? Would it refresh your memory if you looked at your phone, or is that information not in there?
It might be in an email, on an invoice.
It's okay.
Okay.
All right, thank
I
you.
like her hair.
Give me just 1 second.
Yes.
Is that a photo that you took?
Yes.
On what day did you take that photo?
On October 10th.
And how do you know that?
Because it is in my phone, and I saw the date on it.
Okay, you actually looked up the date, is that
Yes.
right? So this photo was taken 2 days before.
Hold on, I want to take a screen capture of this. I think this is the one where they're like, there's a live ammo in that tray. Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Before you brought the 45 long Colt dummies onto the set from Mr. Kinney.
Correct.
And I'm going to show you what we have marked as States Exhibit 163. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What is that a photo of?
It is a photo of dummies in Alec Baldwin's holster rig.
And has that also been referred to as a bandolier?
Yeah.
Okay. But so this was Mr. Baldwin's prop. This was his gun holster.
Yes.
Do you recall the date that you took this photo?
October 13th.
October 13th.
Mhm.
And if you recall, was Mr. Baldwin's holster a holster that was provided by Ms. Gutierrez?
No.
Where did that holster come from?
Seth Kinney had it specially made for Alec Baldwin, and he shipped it out to us.
And are you the person that received it?
Yes.
When you received it, did it already have dummy rounds loaded in it?
No.
Do you know who loaded the dummy rounds into Mr. Baldwin's holster that we're looking at here in 163?
I don't remember specifically if
Okay.
it was me or Hannah.
But it would have been one of the two of you.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, hold on a second.
Seth Kinney had it specially made for Alec Baldwin.
Was Mr. Baldwin's holster a holster that was provided by Ms. Gutierrez?
No.
Where did that holster come from?
Seth Kinney had it specially made for Alec Baldwin, and he shipped it out to us.
And are you the person that received it?
Yes.
When you received it, did it already have dummy rounds loaded in it?
No.
Do you know who loaded the dummy rounds into Mr. Baldwin's holster that we're looking at here in 163?
I don't remember specifically if
Okay.
it was me or Hannah.
But it would have been one of the two of you.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh no, it's not looking good.
Ms. Zachary, I'm gonna take you to October 21st of 2021. Do you recall that day?
Yes.
Can you explain to the jurors, to the best of your recollection, what was happening on set prior to the lunch hour?
It was a very slow-moving day because a few hours into that day, we had learned that the part of the crew, or part of the camera crew, had left production, and we were working on getting a replacement team that day.
So was there a delay in filming that morning?
Yes.
And when there is a delay in filming, what do you do? Are you still busy doing props?
I was coordinating with the
So again, the defense theory, Hannah and her defense's theory is that she sabotaged, Sarah Zachary sabotaged, and Seth Kenny also sabotaged as well. And that Seth Kenny was the one that provided the live ammunition to the set. But from what we've heard so far, it seems like the box that Seth Kenny provided doesn't match the one that Hannah said where she pulled the live ammunition from. The box where she pulled it from matches the one that her father sent a picture of, the one that they have in their possession. And then not only that, Sarah's saying they're like, oh, well, I only got one box from Seth Kenny, and that was after the photo was taken of Hannah sitting there with the picture of the gun. Because I think that's the picture where the prosecution was like, if you zoom in and look closely, there's actually a live ammunition in that tray. So, not looking good.
the
Bye,
art
taxi.
director about props for later that day, but otherwise we weren't really actively working.
Yeah, we're almost done.
And
20
given
minutes.
that they weren't filming anything, was Ms. Gutierrez very busy?
No.
So would she have had time that morning to do whatever she needed to do?
Sure.
And
So she wasn't rushed.
at some point, does filming begin again?
Yes, but I don't remember what time.
Okay, would it have been before or after lunch, if you recall?
We moved up to the church to a different scene. We did have one scene that we were filming that morning, but then sometime later that morning we moved to the church for a new scene. And as far as I remember, we only got in a rehearsal, but we weren't really actively working yet.
Okay, and do you remember going to lunch?
Yes.
What happened after lunch? What were you doing after lunch?
After lunch,
I think I hear a bird in their live stream or something. There's like a sound. It sounds like a bird, like outside of the courthouse.
we drove back in the van to set, and Nicole, Hannah, and I had retrieved the guns out of the safe and returned them back to the church. And then I had learned that I had forgotten one of the guns in the safe, so I went back to retrieve it. And
Okay, hang on.
okay,
Were you and Hannah and Ms. Montoya handling any guns prior to the lunch hour?
to take back to the truck, yes, and then in the one scene that we did, the actors had their guns holstered. So.
When you say to take back to the truck, tell us what you mean to take back to the truck from where?
So when we were breaking for lunch, we were taking the guns back from the cart and locking them up in the safe on the prop truck.
So the guns were used in the morning. Do you recall when the guns were used in the morning, were dummies put in them?
I don't recall that, no.
And is that something that you think you would recall, or?
No, I don't remember what the scenes were
Okay.
entirely. I don't know if it was more than one scene.
Okay. But guns were brought out and used in the morning session. You just don't know if they had dummies in them or not.
Correct.
So after lunch, the three of you go and you pull guns out of the safe.
Correct.
And are you all there together?
Yes.
You can see what the other person is doing.
Yes.
How far is the prop truck from the church?
Couple 100 yards, maybe more than that.
So did all three of you take guns in your hands up to the area where the church was?
Yes.
And when you got up there, what did you guys do with those guns, if you recall?
Laid them on the prop cart.
And then is that when you went back to the truck?
I know that I had loaded Jensen Ackles' gun, and when I had realized that I forgotten Swen's gun, I had said that I was going to go back to the truck. Hannah said that she was going to go check Alex's gun with Dave, and Nicole stayed with the cart.
When you say you loaded Jensen Ackles' gun, what did you load it with?
I loaded it with dummies.
And where did you get those dummies from?
They were on the cart.
Did you take them out of a box, or were they just laying there?
They were in a cup holder at the top of the cart.
Okay. Is that the only gun that you loaded dummies in that afternoon?
Swen's as well, Swen Pemmels.
Okay, so you go back to the truck, you get Swen's gun, and then do you come back up to the church?
Yes,
And where are you when you load that gun with dummies?
I believe at the cart.
At that point in time, if you recall, where was the cart?
It was outside of the church, several yards away.
Okay. So after you put the dummies in the gun, and I'm sorry, did Ms. Gutierrez walk away from the cart with Mr. Baldwin's gun?
Yes,
And who put the dummies in Mr. Baldwin's gun?
Hannah.
Did you happen to see or take note of where she took the dummies from to put in the gun?
She said she was going to check it with Dave, so I assumed the church.
No, I mean when she put the dummies in. Did
Oh.
you see her?
No,
Okay, you don't know where she got those dummy rounds from?
no,
So then she said she's going to go in the church and check it with Dave. Is that right?
yes,
And do you see Ms. Gutierrez again?
no,
When is the next time that you see her?
after the incident.
What?
So the 2 revolvers that you loaded with dummies,
Because so she's saying that Hannah went to go check the gun with Dave before they hand it to Alec Baldwin, and then she never sees her again except after the incident. But Hannah's version of the story was that after she gave the gun and came out of the church, she was hanging by the prop cart with Sarah Zachary. They heard something go off and Sarah was freaked out, and Sarah was like, "Oh, what was that sound?" And then Hannah Reed was like, "Oh, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's not the gun because I checked it. It was probably like a, like a sound effect or something like that, like one of those poppers." I don't know. Maybe she'll clarify.
Mr. Ackles' gun and the other gentleman, what happened to those revolvers?
I believe I threw them away.
No. What happened to
sorry.
the revolvers?
The revolvers? We took them back to the truck with the rest of them.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's okay. I know. Have you ever testified before?
No.
Okay. I know. It's not the easiest of things. You take the Ackles gun and Swin's gun and you put dummies in them, right? What do you do with the guns at that moment?
Sorry.
That's okay. I'll get you there. It's all right.
I took them to Dave to check, and then I gave them off to the actors.
So you provided them to those actors and then they were out of your hands.
Yes,
And did you touch any other guns or dummy ammunition prior to the incident?
no, not that day.
Right.
Okay.
Not that day. Thank you. So after you hand those guns off to those actors, what do you do? What are you doing when the incident occurs?
I am at the prop cart with Nicole, prepping props for the next day, going over the preliminary schedule.
So you're at the prop cart, and do you have any idea where Ms. Gutierrez is?
No,
What? Different
What
stories.
happens next?
I hear the gunshot go off and Joel scream.
When you heard the sound, what did it sound like to you? Did it sound like something that you were accustomed to hearing?
No,
How did it sound compared to, you've heard blanks go off, right? Is that a yes?
yes,
That's okay. And how did this compare to the sound of a blank?
it was louder.
How long after you heard that sound did you hear Mr. Sousa scream?
Immediately.
Where the fuck was Hannah?
Did you have any idea what happened?
No,
What did you do when this happens? Tell us what happens next, and how are you able to determine that something urgent is happening?
I was asking around what happened. I originally thought it was a special effects rig that went off, and they were telling me that it was a gun, and I asked them whose gun it was, and they said, well, Alec's gun is in the church. And then
She was probably worried that was
I
hers.
had walked over to Jensen. He was looking in the church, and I could see Joel on the ground clutching his shoulder.
What happened after that?
Jensen told me to get the guns to safety.
And so what guns did you take, and where did you take them?
I took Jensen and Swen's guns back to the cart.
To the prop cart that was located right there.
Correct.
And did you do anything with the guns when you got them to the prop cart?
I put them in their socks.
Did you take the dummies out at that point in time?
Yes.
Why did you remove the dummies from the guns right there at that point in time?
Because after they're not being in use, you completely empty them.
Oops, sorry.
Now, dummy guns right there at that point in time.
Because after they're not being in use, you Jensen and Swen's guns back to the cart.
To the prop cart that was located right there.
Correct.
And did you do anything with the guns when you got them to the prop cart?
I put them in their socks.
Did you take the dummies out at that point in time?
Yes.
Why did you remove the dummies from the guns right there at that point in time?
Because after they're not being in use, you completely empty them.
Now, dummies are props that are reusable, correct?
Correct.
So you removed the dummies from the guns, and what did you do with the dummy rounds after you removed them?
I believe I threw them away.
And why did you throw them away?
In a state of shock and panic. I think it was a reactive decision.
And did you tell anyone that you threw those dummy rounds away?
No.
At some point in time, did you disclose that information to law enforcement?
Yes.
Okay. So when you're dealing with these other two revolvers and taking the dummy rounds out of them, and you said you threw them away, was there just a trash can right there?
That was a few feet away from the cart.
That was where you threw them.
Yes.
What do you do next, and what's happening next?
I don't know the order of events, but I know that I had called Seth Kenny. He didn't.
That was where you threw them.
Yes.
What do you do next, and what's happening next?
I don't know the order of events, but I know that I had called Seth Kenny. He didn't pick up my call, and I texted him emergency, and then he called me back.
Why were you calling Mr. Kinney?
I'm not sure why I did. He was kind of my mentor throughout this process, and I just called him. I told him what happened, and he was also freaking out, and that's all I remember.
And what did you tell him happened at this point in time? Did it occur to you that someone had been shot?
I didn't know Helena was hurt. I just knew Joel was. So I told him that Joel was shot.
And at this point in time, has it occurred to you that Mr. Souza was injured by a live round?
That was my impression, but I didn't physically see his wound.
Okay. Because in your experience...
At least in her testimony, she mentioned seeing like who was hurt, who was like not. Because like she said she went in and then she saw Joel was on the ground clutching his shoulders, and that's when she grabbed the rest of the guns and she secured them, right? But in Hannah's testimony, or sorry, in her interrogation, she like never mentioned seeing Joel Souza, doesn't mention Helena or anything at all. It's just like, oh, I went in there, everyone was yelling at me and I was just panicking and I just like ran out. But like I felt like she would have saw Helena and like Joel or like people working on them or like them screaming and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. I feel like she just doesn't even mention the victims and just like brushes over it.
Movie sets, Mr. Souza was injured by a live round.
That was my impression, but I didn't physically see his wound.
Okay. Because in your experience on movie sets, do dummies or blanks cause people to fall down and scream?
No.
Hi, Bernice.
So when you spoke to Mr. Kinney, did you, if you recall, did you tell him any of the details about which gun it was or who loaded it or anything like that?
Not that I recall.
How long do you think that phone call lasted?
30 seconds, a minute.
Okay. After that phone call, what did you do?
Like I said, I don't know the order, but I know at some point I had talked to Hannah. She was in the middle of a breakdown, and she showed me the rounds in her hand, and she said, I swear I shook them, and I could visually see that one of them didn't have the bullet anymore.
Okay, and her statement to you was, I could swear I shook him, or I swear I shook him. Okay.
Yes.
And before I forget, I still have State's Exhibit 163 on the screen. Do you know whose hand is in that picture, who's holding the holster?
It's Hannah.
Which picture is that? Show us. Hi, Bernice.
So, at any point in time, did you, well, after, and I understand you don't know the order of things, but after, if it did in fact happen after, Ms. Gutierrez shows you the rounds in her hand, do you know, was Mr. Halls there at that time?
Not next to me. At one point I saw him next to Hannah with the gun by the church outside of it.
Okay. So, what happens next?
After that, I go back to the cart and I start rattling dummies from a box. And I notice that some of them don't rattle like they're supposed to.
And did you tell anyone what you realized?
Nicole was standing right there, and she saw, and then I had told the police later down at base camp.
You told them?
That some of the rounds didn't rattle.
Okay. And at some point later, did you mention to Ms. Gutierrez that you thought like more than half the box didn't rattle?
Yes.
Do you think that more than half the box had live rounds in it?
No.
Why do you think, why did you make that statement to her?
Originally, when I was checking it, like I said, it was chaotic. I was in shock, and I was frantically rattling the rounds. But as time went on, I realized that I had forgotten that some rounds might have had a hole on the side of the rounds.
So there were some dummies in there that weren't rattlers?
Yes.
Okay, they had the hole in the side.
I didn't visually see it, but I noticed that there were a couple rounds in there with silver primers.
Okay, you noticed some silver primers.
Correct.
To the best of your recollection, do you know how many silver primers you saw?
Possibly 2 or 3.
Okay. And did you rattle those or try to rattle those?
Yes.
What happened after that?
I was on my way back with Nicole and Daniel, the art director, to take the guns back to the truck. And then I got a text message or phone call from Ryan Norvell asking me to bring Hannah's personal bag to her. And so Nicole and Daniel continued to take the guns back to the truck while I did that.
Who was taking the guns back to the truck?
Nicole and Daniel, the art director.
Daniel Ornitz.
Correct.
Okay. So you didn't take the guns back to the prop truck?
No.
What I want to know is how soon did she tell law enforcement that she threw the dummies away in the trash can? Was it that day? Was it days later, weeks later, months later?
When you were looking in the ammo, in the box of dummies, is that something that you just did on your own, or did anyone instruct you to do that?
I don't remember.
Did you take anything off of that prop cart other than the dummy rounds that you've indicated you took out of those 2 revolvers? Did you take anything else and move it back to the prop truck or anywhere else?
No.
Did you throw anything else away other than those dummy rounds?
No.
And Ms. Zachary, I have to ask you this. Did you bring live rounds onto that movie set?
No.
When the box of Seth Kinney 45 long Colt dummies came on set on October 12th, do you know, did anyone inspect that box?
No. Seth did.
Did you see Ms. Gutierrez inspect that box after it arrived on set?
No.
Did Mr. Kinney ever instruct you or ask you to plant evidence or destroy evidence?
No.
After the incident, after you pulled the rounds out of the box, what were you doing after that? Did you take a timeout? What was happening?
I went back down to the town. Police were telling everybody to leave the area, and I was having a panic attack in the town, and Jensen and Swen came to console me, and we were just talking about what happened and what might have happened.
Okay, you visited with those gentlemen about it?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to shift gears here. We understand that you and Ms. Gutierrez were both doing some level of armor duties. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
And you and Ms. Gutierrez were both doing some level of prop duties. Is that right?
Yes.
Did Ms. Gutierrez ever express concerns to you that she didn't have enough time to focus on her armor duties because she was so busy doing prop work?
I don't recall that being an issue.
Did it seem to you, as her coworker, that she was stretched too thin and didn't have enough time to do her armor duties?
No.
Seems like she was just chilling.
Let me just review my notes real quick. Do you recall there being a time during filming where there was a discussion about doing firearms training with the child actor?
I do.
And what was your understanding of whether or not that was permitted?
Production didn't want to allow it because of the actor's age.
And if you recall, what was Ms. Gutierrez's response to that?
I know that she had wanted to train the actor offset with the permission of his provider.
His guardian?
Yeah, guardian, yeah.
Okay. So production had told her that she couldn't do it, and she was going to do it with the guardian's permission. Is that correct?
As far as I remember.
Okay. Do you know whether or not that ever took place?
I don't.
Sorry, my head is like hurting. You know when you do like a high ponytail, it starts hurting
I'll
the
pass
crown
on
of your
this.
head?
All right, we're going to take our evening break today. So please don't talk among yourselves or anyone else about the evidence received here in court. Please do not look up anything about the movie production or this trial, okay? Don't do any research on your own. Thank you.
All right.
We'll see you at 8:30 tomorrow.
You know, I wonder when they resumed filming of the Rust movie, did they just end up just using like fake guns? Like, what do they do afterwards? Oh, there goes the side eye. Side eye Sarah Zachary. You know, I thought it was interesting that they threw out the theory that Sarah Zachary and Seth Kenny sabotaged the evidence and that it was their fault. They were colluding behind the scenes and all that stuff. But there hasn't been any other evidence backing that up. I'm just saying. I don't think I believe it. Yes, Sarah Zachary did a very, very stupid panicky thing where she fucking, for some reason, emptied out the gun and threw out the dummies in someone else's gun. Very stupid thing. And it doesn't look good. It looks really bad. But I do want to know, how long did it take for her to tell law enforcement about that? Because she did tell law enforcement. I feel like that would be something that she could have just kept a secret and not tell anyone. Unless someone was like, hey, I saw her doing this and it was like really obvious, really weird. But if she told law enforcement out of her own volition, then that makes it looks pretty, you know, a lot better. You misjudged as karate. Oh boy, I don't know, man. Everything looks so bad for Hannah Gutierrez or Hannah Reed or whatever her last name is. I don't know, man. It does not look. Well, I do know. It just doesn't look good. It does not look good. I can't wait for the defense to go. They better have something crazy on their hands. They better have something good. Anyways, y'all. Well, that was today. Today we had some really good testimonies, man. We had testimony from David Halls, the assistant director / safety guy, Sarah Zachary, who went just now, and we had an experienced armorer testify. I think the experienced armorer was one of my favorite testimonies so far. It was pretty good. The way that he described things on set, talked about his experiences, things to do, things not to do, especially Hannah having to point the shotgun barrel at her own face, neck-ish area while she was like holding it up like this. Other actors and stunt devils, whatever, just waving the guns around. I don't know, man. Crazy stuff. So tomorrow, I guess tomorrow they're going to continue. They're going to hammer on Sarah Zachary. So she's going to have to come on again tomorrow, come back and do the cross-examination. But who else are we looking forward to? Oh, I guess Seth Kenny. I guess maybe he'll testify as well. But other than that, I mean, can't wait to hear from the defense side of things. Thank you guys. Yes, Kiki, thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you guys. We're dual streaming on Twitch and on YouTube. Thank you for hanging out with me today. I appreciate you guys. I'm sorry, the stream went down originally. I think I accidentally hit the space bar, which sometimes deactivates. Like if my OBS screen is active and I hit the space bar, I guess it'll just end my stream. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I guess depending on what area I'm clicking on to OBS. But I hope you guys have a good one. I will see you guys tomorrow. We'll be back again with the rest of Sarah Zachary's cross-examination, and then maybe Seth Kenny, and I don't know who else they're going to bring, but I don't think they're going to bring Alec Baldwin. I haven't heard him being mentioned on the witness list, but I do want to say that Alec Baldwin's trial has been scheduled for July. Apparently, Hannah Reed is going to be testifying in there, and, you know, it'll be an interesting one. They said it was going to be 8 days long, which I'm like, yes, short trial stuff, yes. So 8 days long, and that'll be in July. All right, I need to wash my hair. My hair is greasy today. But I hope you guys have a good one. Take care, and I will see you guys tomorrow. All right, if you're new here, join the Discord. Have your notifications on because Discord notifications will always go through. Join in the Discord. It's like a kind of like a chat room for all of us to kind of hang out in. There's like different subtopics and things like that. We have the true crime section, so anything related to this stuff, feel free to post it in there, or anything related to true crimes in general, or anything you want me to go over, feel free to post it in there and I'll check it out. And I'm trying to think what else is there. I think that's about it. Follow the socials, I guess. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the like button. I don't know. All that. Blah, 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 blah. All right, guys. But I have a headache, man. My ponytail was a little too high today. My head hurts. I hope you have a good one. Bye, Store. Bye, Studio. Bye, Rain. Bye, Chopper. Dino. Bake. Rhiannon. Thank you so much for chatting. Thank you for the super chat. And I appreciate you guys being here. Also, I've been having some offline subs, I guess. Subs, yeah. I don't know. Subscription sounds weird when I say it out loud like that. Later. Bye. I do appreciate you guys. Okay. Thank you. Both on Twitch and both on YouTube. Overwatch. I don't know. Should I play Overwatch? Should I play Overwatch? I don't know if I want to play Overwatch. If I play Overwatch, maybe off stream. I don't know. I'm gonna go outside, hang out with Shiro, and then I might hop on for some games here and there. But I don't know. I'm so tired. Oh, I'm gonna do gym stuff today. I am. What are you gonna play Overwatch? What rank are you guys now? What rank are you guys on Overwatch? Also, my stomach does not feel good today. Like, it is boobly. But I'm getting so close to getting my Mora Mythic skin, though. I think I'm on the last page, which is wild. I can't wait to get that skin. All right, y'all. I hope you guys have a good one. Take care, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.